Hello everyone, my name's Justin, and for this project I decided to make hot chocolate, but replacing dairy milk with oat milk. And the reason I chose on hot chocolate is because it's a beverage I really like drinking during the winter time when it's cold outside, and it tastes really good. So for the ingredients of this recipe, I will be using dairy milk, cocoa powder, sugar, chocolate chips, oat milk, and additionally I decided to add marshmallows to increase the flavor and add some additional variety. The reason I decided to replace dairy milk in this experiment was because dairy milk is a common allergen alongside being inaccessible to those with lactose intolerance and those who prefer plant based diets. Now, dairy milk is a critical part of traditional hot chocolate because it acts as the primary liquid base. Additionally, dairy milk has the physical properties of being a oil in water emulsion, and this aids in the distribution of the cocoa from the melted chocolate, helping contribute to that smooth texture. What made me decide on using oat milk as the replacement was that I stumbled upon this article and it experimentally found that compared to all other forms of alternative milk, oat milk most resembles the viscosity of dairy milk. Oat milk also shares the properties of being an oil and water emulsion, so given these similarities, it will be very interesting to determine whether this oat milk based hot chocolate will have similar taste and texture to that of traditional hot chocolate, and all while being more accessible to those with lactose intolerance, plant based diets, or those with dairy allergies. My research question is, can oat milk effectively replace dairy milk in hot chocolate without significantly altering its taste and structural properties? And the objectives of this experiment are to evaluate how replacing dairy milk with oat milk affects the flavor, viscosity, and structural properties of hot chocolate. So the equipment we'll be using is a saucepan, a stove, a measuring cup, two identical mugs, 2 tablespoons, and something to mix with. So for the first step, we're going to pour 250 milliliters of milk. We'll then pour this into the saucepan and set it to medium to low heat, making sure it doesn't boil. We will then add 1 tablespoon of sugar, 1 tablespoon of cocoa powder, and 1 tablespoon of chocolate chip. Next, we will mix it and whisk it. I will be using a fork, waiting for it to become a homogeneous mixture. We will then pour it into the mug and add a few marshmallows. I will now copy those exact same steps, except this time with the dairy milk. So here are my two hot chocolates. A is the dairy milk and B is the oat milk. So here they are side by side. The dairy milk has a slightly lighter color compared to the oat milk, and it's also a bit of a thicker viscosity compared to the oat milk one. Taste wise, I find they're actually surprisingly pretty similar. I do find the dairy one has a slightly creamier and more rich taste than the oat milk, which is a bit thinner. Okay, so you can try the two hot chocolates now.
I think that's the dairy milk and that's the oat milk.
Which flavor do you like better?
I like this one better.
The dairy one?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Does it have a different taste or texture you find?
No, it's what I'm used to.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Possible explanations for these slight differences in taste is that dairy milk contains casein proteins, lactose as its sugar, and has a lot of milk fat. And this can explain why it had a higher quality of sweetness, creaminess, and natural emulsification. Oat milk doesn't have casein proteins. It uses plant-based sugars, and also uses vegetable oils as its fat. And this can alter the mouthfeel and stabilization of the hot chocolate. However, both were relatively similar in taste, and this could be in part due to the fact they are both oil and water emulsions. Some limitations of this experiment is that we only had one person partake in the blind taste test, and taste is also subjective and can be influenced by familiarity and expectations. Additionally, the viscosity test was not objective as we only used a fork to measure it. So, when compared to almond milk hot chocolate, oat milk likely performs more similarly to dairy milk, and this can be due to the fact they have a higher resemblance in their viscosity levels, which is in part because almond milk is very thin given that it has lower proteins and less soluble fibers. In conclusion, there wasn't that much difference between the dairy milk hot chocolate and the oat milk hot chocolate. However, the slight variations are that the oat milk one has a slightly thinner viscosity, a slightly less rich and creamy taste compared to dairy milk, and the significance of these findings is that oat milk is a viable alternative for making hot chocolate without using dairy milk. And moving forward, this shows that we can replace dairy milk with oat milk in other beverages, such as bubble teas, lattes, and coffees.